Okay, let's continue then. So we have started with solid state yesterday. I told you about the characteristics of solid. Then we went to the classification of solid, correct? No? And you saw there are two classifications for this. Solids are classified into two category. One is crystalline solid and the other one is amorphous solid. Okay. Then I went to the characteristics of these crystalline and amorphous. Okay. Just we will revise whatever we have done till yesterday. So in crystalline solid, you have seen that the particles which are present, the constituent particles which are present, they have a ordered arrangement. Okay. And whereas in the amorphous, you don't find that order arrangement. Okay, that proper kind of atoms which are placed in a places, that kind of arrangement you don't find throughout the crystal. It may be there, but to a short distance you will be finding them. Okay, so we say crystalline solid doesn't have crystalline solid has a geometrical shape, characteristic geometrical shape, whereas amorphous doesn't have a correct geometrical shape. So we say it's a irregular shape one. And crystalline solid, you see that the arrangement of these constituent particles, you find that arrangement throughout the crystal. Okay, throughout the crystal you find same kind of arrangement. So we say they possess a long range order, whereas in the amorphous you find that arrangement maybe only for the short distance. Okay, you don't find that arrangement happening throughout the crystal lattice. So we say they possess a short range order. Okay, so long range order means the regular pattern which is getting repeated throughout the crystal, whereas a short range order means the pattern which is there, it doesn't get repeated throughout the crystal, it is seen only for the short distance. Okay, so that is the second characteristics of crystalline as well as for amorphous solid. And one more we have seen, the next one was when you take the crystalline solid and measure the physical properties for them in different direction. Like if I take either this direction or in this direction, okay, or the third one in this direction, the third one, okay, like different axes if you are going to measure. So when you take crystalline solid and measure these physical property, like I said, refractive index or conductivity, either thermal conductivity or electrical conductivity, if you're measuring in this particular direction, you get only for these kind of particles. Okay, these green particles which are present, you will get answer only for these particles. But if you're going to measure in this direction, you will be getting for these pink color particles. Okay, so if you go in another direction, in that angle you will be getting these two particles together. Okay, so you will get value for the combination of these two particles together. So these values which you are going to obtain for the physical property, it is going to be different. Okay, in different direction in the case of crystalline solid, whereas in the case of amorphous solid, if you're going to measure that same physical properties in different direction, you end up getting almost same kind of particles. Okay, you don't find much difference, so this value will almost remain same. Okay, so we call amorphous as isotropic because the values comes out to be almost similar, whereas in this, since the values are different, we call them as anisotropic in nature. Okay, so that was the third property what we have done. Okay, the characteristic property. Now next we will move on. The next point, okay, in the crystalline solid, if you take a sharp edge tool and try to cut them into two parts, okay, so if you cut them using this tool, so you will see that the surface which is generated after being cut down, you will see that the surface is quite smooth. Okay, whereas if you take amorphous solid and cut them into, okay, two pieces, the surface which will be generated, that comes out to be rough. Okay, so this has been observed. You have to have a very good sophisticated instrument for that to measure this surface. Okay, to look into the surface you require a ultra microscope. So if you cut down with the, yeah, knife or any sharp edge tool, okay, sometimes knife will work, but every time the knife won't work, so you require a instrument for that to cut them into two pieces. Okay, so if you cut this down, since crystalline solid, you see that there is a correct arrangement of particles, order is there, so you'll get a smooth surface. Whereas in the amorphous solid, you know that the arrangement is not correct for the atoms, they are not in a correct order, so you don't get a smooth surface, you will get an irregular surface. Okay, so that is the next characteristics. When you cut them with the sharp edge tool, for crystalline solid, the newly generated surface will be plain and smooth. Okay. Whereas if you do that with the amorphous solid, you will find that the surface generated will be quite rough. Yeah. So we have finished with this. I hope it's clear, this point. Okay. Now we'll go for next one. The next characteristic is if you take this crystalline solid, okay, and try to melt them out. Like for example, water, water will start melting at 0 degrees Celsius. After 0 degrees Celsius, it will start getting converted into liquid. Okay. And even sodium chloride melting point is quite high. Okay. So they actually melt around 801 degrees Celsius, very high. But at this particular point, they will exactly start melting. Okay. Usually if you want to check the melting point for this, salts are there, no, in the lab. If you're planning for basic science studies in your higher classes, you will have to measure this melting point. Usually we take a capillary tube. Okay, a small capillary tubes are given. Okay, so this tube will be sealed from one side and another side will be open. So you have to fill this salt in that particular capillary tube, and you have to keep in the melting point. This thing meter will be there. Okay, a melting meter is there, and then you have to keep this particular salt. So when the melting point, okay, of that particular salt reaches whatever temperature at what they melt, no, at that particular point you will see that the salt will start melting, and after that you don't find any rise in the temperature. Okay, so exactly for sodium chloride at 801 degrees Celsius, sodium chloride will start melting, and after that you don't find any rise in the thermometer. Okay, so that is the exact point. So they have a sharp melting point. At this point itself they will start melting. Okay, so that is in the case of crystalline solid. If you take a crystalline solid, they have very sharp melting point. But if you talk about amorphous now, like for example glass, if you are taking, or even you take plastic, they don't have a sharp melting point. If you start to heat them, you will see that they become soft actually. Have you observed this? If you have observed any glass videos, when they prepare glass, okay, they melt this particular substance and then they become quite sticky. Okay, they don't melt actually, they convert into a fluid. Yeah, even plastic, if you have observed properly, they don't actually convert into a liquid. Okay, they remain in that texture, fluid texture. They will start flowing actually. Okay, not exactly like how water is there, no, in the liquid state. Actually they are in the fluid state. Okay, so they don't have a sharp melting point. If you start melting them, you don't know exactly where they will start. Okay, that temperature will start increasing like that. So they have a range of melting point. Okay, they don't have a sharp melting point, they just soften up. So these are also called as, actually a different name is given that I will tell you later. Okay, so the next point which I have discussed now, the fifth point what I told you is, if you take a crystalline solid, they will melt at a particular temperature. Okay, so we say they have a sharp melting point. Whereas if you talk about the amorphous solid, if you take amorphous solid, they will not melt at particular point. Now for example, for glass, if you see the melting point, they have range of melting point. It's actually around 1400 to around 1600. So this is the temperature at which this they will be in the liquid state. So you don't have exactly one particular temperature where they will start getting converted into a liquid. Okay, so they have range of melting point. Okay, I hope it's clear. So they don't have a sharp melting point, whereas these crystalline has a sharp melting point. So these crystalline solids are also called as true solids. Okay, and whereas this one, since they don't have a correct melting point, they are also called as pseudo solids. Actually their property is more like fluid. Okay, so they look like a solid, but their properties are more into a fluid compounds rather than into a solid ones. Okay, and one more, next point, the sixth one is, it's almost connected to this itself. They have a definite heat of fusion. Heat of fusion is the amount of heat required. You have learned about enthalpy of fusion, if you remember. Correct, no? Enthalpy of fusion we have studied in thermodynamic. I hope you are able to recall that. Do you remember what was enthalpy of fusion? Anyone who can tell me? What was enthalpy of fusion? Yeah, the amount of heat required. Very good. Yes, correct. The amount of heat required to convert a solid into a liquid. Okay. So this particular crystalline solid, if you are taking, they will have certain amount of heat they will take to get converted from a solid into a liquid. Yes, very good. Okay, I've got few answers. The amount of heat required. Okay, if you are taking 1 gram of a solid, then that will be standard enthalpy because you are measuring the compound. Okay, and that will be definite for a crystalline solid. They will have a definite heat of fusion. Whereas here, see, you can see now, I told you this amorphous ones, they have a range of temperature. So you don't know how much amount of heat they will be taking it. Okay, so in this particular temperature range, they will be in the liquid state. So there is no exact temperature at which they will get converted into a liquid state. So these amorphous solid, they don't have a definite heat of fusion. You don't understand exactly how much heat is required by them to get converted into a solid to a liquid state. Okay, so these don't have a definite heat of fusion. So that is our next point. I hope it's clear, students. These 2 points are clear to everyone. This you can take as 6th one, actually, true solids, and this you can take as 7th one. Okay, pseudo solids, or also they are also called as super cooled solids. Okay, super cooled solids. Okay, glass, actually, in the liquid state, if you start lowering the temperature, then they get converted into a solid. So super cooled liquids, sorry, super cooled liquids, they are also called as super cooled liquids. Yes, write this down now. Yes, now here we will understand this point little more in detail. I told you that these amorphous solids, also called as pseudo solids or super cooled liquids. Okay, so now why these are called as liquids? Because they have a tendency to flow. Okay, they flow down. If you have, I don't know whether you have observed this, glass or very old buildings. Okay, if you have observed very old buildings, glasses are there, no? You will find that in the starting, that is beginning, it is little thinner, but as the time passes by, after many years, actually, okay, after many years, you will see that the bottom part which is there, that becomes little thicker than compared to the upper ones. Okay, so why is this happening? That is because of the tendency of this glasses to flow over the time. Okay, so as the time passes by, they take that temperature, they become softer, and then they start flowing downwards. Okay, so that's the reason why you will find that the old window panes are there, no, so slightly thicker at the bottom than compared to the top. Okay, so that's the reason why they are also called as pseudo means what? Pseudopodia, have you heard? For amoeba, we say they have pseudopodia. Pseudo means false. Okay, actually they don't have hands and legs, no, they use their whole body to take the food. So pseudo means false, actually. So actually they look like a solid, but then they have a property of a fluid. Okay, so it is called as pseudo solids. Okay, look wise it is something else, but behavior wise a little different. So pseudo solids, also called as supercooled liquids. Okay, so this is another picture which I have given. So since they are able to flow up due to their fluid nature, you find that this window panes are slightly thicker at the bottom than compared to the top ones. Okay, this can be asked as a give reason. So you can make a note of this. Glass of very old building found to be thicker at the bottom. They will ask you why. So you can give your answer, because glasses being an amorphous solid, they have tendency to flow down. Okay, slowly. So due to this fluid character, it makes the bottom part little thicker. Now this you have asked me, how long will it take for this process to take place? Okay, so it depends. One thing I said, it will take many years, and it depends on how the glass is been prepared. Now when the glass preparation is done, see, initially they will put all this compound. You know how glass is actually, what is the main compound for that is actually silica. Okay, silica is nothing but sand. Sand is taken to prepare glass. Okay, so if you want colored glasses, then they add certain amount of metals, because metal will impart colors. So they take this silica compound and they heat at very high temperature. So when you heat this compound, with certain other compounds are also added. Okay. So when you heat them, they convert into this sticky mass. You can see here, this picture I have put here. No. So they convert into this. And then once it has been done, then they give them shape by blowing or casting them. And once that is over, they cool this down. Okay. Suppose if you do a rapid cooling, when you do rapid cooling, that time what happens, these molecules which are present in the glass, they don't get much time to arrange themselves. Here and there they will get arranged. Okay. So then it will lead to disorderness. So then the fluid character will be more in them. But if you're going to cool them with very lower, like from higher to very lower temperature, that process is called as actually annealing. If you do this annealing process very nicely, slowly, then these atoms will get much time for themselves to arrange. Okay, so they will arrange themselves properly in the order. Then this fluid character observed will be little less. Okay, so it depends on the type of glasses, how the glass is being prepared. So it changes actually. Okay. You have any doubt to ask? Now we are done with the characteristics of crystalline as well as amorphous. Okay, and then this one give reason kind of question they can ask you. What is the reason that you find that window frames are quite thicker at the bottom than compare to the top? Okay, that's because of their tendency to flow. Yes, now I'll start with the next one. We are moving on with the classification of crystalline solid. Okay, so we will begin now. Classification of crystalline solids you are going to study, and this crystalline solids are classified into different categories, okay, depending on what components, means the constituent particles which are there, no, depending on what particles are present, they are classified into different category. So these are the four categories you are going to study. Okay, one is molecular solid, then you can see ionic solid on the other side, then we have metallic solid, and then we have covalent solids. Okay, so these are the three different classifications of crystalline solid. Okay, so let us start with the first one, that is molecular solid. Okay, so you go along with the name because they ask you even example to write down. Give one example for molecular solid, or tell what is the force of attraction which is present between them. This kind of questions can be asked. Okay, so in the molecular solid, as you can go with the name, so that means the constituent particles which are going to be present over here has to be molecules, correct? No, so either they are molecules or they can be even atoms also. Okay, sometimes they can be molecules or atoms. So constituent particles are this, and between these molecular solids, the force of attraction which is going to be present between them, that's the weakest force. Okay, that is van der Waals force of attraction is present among these molecules or the atoms. Okay, so that is the first point which I have told. For molecular solid, the constituent particles are either molecules or they are atoms, and the force of attraction which is existing between them, that's van der Waals force of attraction. Okay, now these molecular solids are further divided, because if you have molecules and atoms as constituent particles, there are different forces which are present. No, you remember different van der Waals forces of attraction you have studied in states of matter. What were they actually? Can you list few of them? One was, I will start. See, first was polar. You had polar molecules, correct? No? Dipole moment was there. Dipole-dipole interaction you had between polar molecules. Then you had dispersion forces, also called as London forces. Yes, correct. Good. London forces was there. Then we had dipole induced dipole. Then one more we had hydrogen bonding also. One more category was there, no? Yes, very good. Okay, so these are the different forces of attraction. So depending on the molecules which are there or atoms, different forces will be present. Okay, so these are broadly classified into three categories. Let's go for that. Okay, I'll go for those three classification. First one is non-polar molecular solids. Okay, so go with the name. Non-polar molecular solid means here, this molecule doesn't have any charge separation within themselves. Between the atoms, there is no charge separation like that. Okay. For example, like iodine molecules or hydrogen molecule, they are non-polar molecule. Okay. But if you lower the temperature because of some reason, these electron density can shift towards that side. Okay. So this iodine molecule, I have taken iodine molecule here. One iodine can get a negative charge and the other one can acquire a positive charge because these electrons are in the form of wave. So there is possibility that one wave can come on one side. So okay, on one side you can have major distribution of negative charges and the other one may be losing it. So they will get a deficient partial positive charge and the other one will get partial negative charge. So once this is being generated, this separation which has happened can polarize the other molecule also. So due to which the other molecule will get, if this is negatively charged, the other one will get positive charge and the electron will start shifting towards that side. Okay, so between them whatever force of attraction exists, that is called as London forces. Between them whatever force of attraction is existing, this is the London forces. Okay, which exists between the atoms or molecules, weak London forces. So actually the molecule doesn't have this. Okay, but due to some reason, maybe because of some electrical shock or mechanical shock, or because of the movement of these orbital the waves which are moving, they can get accumulated on one side, due to which the negative charge is being generated, and that can create a bonding between the another molecule. Okay, so this bonding which happens, it's a temporary one, it is not the permanent one. Okay, between the molecule, it doesn't exist like that. So this is temporarily created, and due to this temporary thing, there can be a bonding existing. Okay, so if you have higher molecular mass compound, then the compound will start existing in the different states of matter also. Now here iodine exists in the solid state. But if you talk about fluorine, because the molecular mass is very less, okay, this van der Waals force which is there, London force, it depends on the molecular mass. If you talk about fluorine, between fluorine and fluorine molecule, okay, once the charge separation takes place, then there will be force of attraction. So this will exist in the gas states because the molecule is a small molecule, the mass is also very less. So they are in the gaseous state. But as you go down the group, since the mass increases, then the compound start getting changed into different states of matter. Okay. So here iodine, if I am taking iodine, since they are larger in mass, they will be existing in the solid state. Okay. So you remember always van der Waals force is there, no? Van der Waals force is directly proportional to the molecular mass. Okay. So more is the molecular mass, more will be the van der Waals force, and the compound will be existing in the different state. Okay. If they are having less van der Waals force, then it will be in the gaseous state. So this is the force of attraction in the non-polar molecule, even between hydrogen, because hydrogen is a small atom, so they will be in the gaseous state. And usually these are soft solid. Okay, they are soft solid and they don't conduct any electricity. Okay, so these doesn't give rise to any electricity. If they have to conduct electricity, you should have electrons, no? So there is no free electrons available like that. Okay, so they are not conductors of electricity. And they have very low melting point, because if you lower the temperature, only then they will come in the solid state. Okay, now even fluorine and fluorine, if you want them in the solid state, you have to decrease the temperature drastically. You have to decrease the temperature, only then they will come in the solid state. Otherwise most of the time they will be in the liquid or gaseous state. Okay, at room temperature. Only when you decrease the temperature, they will come in this particular solid. Okay, then they will be called as non-molecular solid, non-polar molecular solids. So this is one category. Okay, second one is polar molecular solid. So example for polar molecules, what can be example? HCl I can take. HCl and HCl, between HCl, see this molecule, between them there is covalent bonding. Okay, HCl, they have shared the electron and they have formed the bond. But now since chlorine is more electronegative, you know that they will try to take all the electron towards themselves. Chlorine carries a minus charge and hydrogen will carry a positive charge. Similar thing happens over here. Now due to which there will be a force of attraction happening, and that is called as dipole-dipole interaction. Okay. So these are by themselves, they have a charge separation. Whereas the before one which I showed you, by themselves, they don't have a charge separation. Because of some reason that charges were created and due to which there is a force of attraction. But here it is not like that. The molecule itself has a charge separation, and due to that charge separation, they try to interact with another molecule. So it is called as dipole-dipole interaction because two poles have created over here. Okay. So dipole-dipole interaction. Now, what are the nature and the example for this? Usually, example see like solid HCl or solid sulfur dioxide. Okay, these are polar covalent bond compounds. And the force of attraction between, just now I've told you, dipole-dipole interaction is there. And they are also usually existing in the liquid or in the gaseous state. HCl basically is a gas. Okay, but then okay, you want me to repeat this once again? HCl actually basically is a gas, but then when you lower the temperature, you can convert them into a solid state. Should I repeat once again? Okay, I'll go back then. I'll start from here. Classification of crystalline solid. So I told you crystalline solids are basically classified into 4 categories. In that first one is molecular solids. Okay. So molecular solid, the constituent particles means how they are made up of. These solids are made up of what? We are asking. Okay. So they are actually made up of either molecules or they are made up of atoms. Okay. And the attraction which is present, the force of attraction which is existing between these molecules, that is the molecular solid, that is van der Waals force of attraction. So you have studied different van der Waals force. Just now you have listed. Those van der Waals force of attractions will be present between this molecular solid. Okay. So let's see the first one. These are further classified into 3 categories actually. Okay. The first one which I discussed just now was this non-polar molecular solid. Okay. Now in non-polar molecular solid, non-polar are the substance which doesn't have any charge separation among themselves. Okay. There is no charge separation between them. Like example, I said iodine, hydrogen, even nitrogen, okay, bromine. These are the example for non-polar molecular solid. Between them, there is no charge separation. But due to some reason, okay, because of that distribution of electrons, if one wave comes on one side, then there will be negative charge created on the iodine molecule here. One iodine will get negative charge and the other one will be losing it. So they get positive charge. So if one gets polarized, they can polarize the other molecule also. Okay. Now due to this polarization, there can be a force of attraction. That force is a weakest force. Here, due to this charge separation which has happened, no? Okay, due to some reason I said, which is happening. So here, due to that reason, there will be a force of attraction between them. That's van der Waals force. Okay, that weakest force is van der Waals force, which is existing between this. Okay, so it will be present between all these molecules. Like iodine will have, even I said hydrogen. If you are taking hydrogen, one hydrogen molecule and another hydrogen molecule, okay, so here there will be charge separation between them. Due to that charge separation, there will be a force of attraction. Okay, so this is van der Waals force. So if you talk about the smaller ones, smaller molecules are there, no? Like hydrogen, smallest one it is. Then even nitrogen, okay, nitrogen, fluorine, all of these are smaller molecules. So between one hydrogen and another hydrogen molecule, when the force of attraction happens, usually they are in the gaseous state because of their small size. Okay, and it's a weakest force, very weak force is existing between them. Okay, So usually they are in the gaseous state. But if you try to lower the temperature, you try to decrease the temperature drastically, you can convert them into a solid state. Okay. Otherwise, normally they are in the gaseous state. But this van der Waals force also depends on the mass. Okay. Like if I talk about halogen group, you have fluorine coming first. Then you have chlorine. Okay. Then we have bromine and then we have iodine. So fluorine mass is very less. So due to less mass, they are existing in the gaseous state. But as the mass increases, remember, as the mass increases, the force of attraction also increases. Van der Waals force increases. So due to that, if the van der Waals force increases, then the compound start getting converted into a different state. So here actually bromine is in the liquid state and iodine is in the solid state. Temperature, no, it should be like minus around 200. So very low temperature, very low temperature actually. Otherwise, normally they are in the gaseous state because hydrogen is a gas. So between them there is no force of attraction, and that weakest force is van der Waals force. But if you want to convert them into a solid, you have to decrease that temperature. Okay. Yes, I believe now this much is clear. And they are soft to solid. Why I'm calling them as soft solid? Because we are decreasing the temperature and converting them, so there is no much strong force of attraction between them. Forcefully you're trying to convert them into a solid. Okay. And they are not very good conductors of electricity, and they have very low melting point, because if you keep them outside, immediately they will get converted into a gas. Have you seen liquid nitrogen? Liquid nitrogen, if you keep it outside, you see that the vapors are coming out, correct? No? So that vapors, because immediately they get converted into a gaseous state. They are more stable in the gaseous state. No, forcefully, yeah, white vapors you see coming out. That's because you are keeping them outside and the room temperature is around 37 degrees Celsius. So 37 degrees Celsius is quite around 28 degrees Celsius, 28 to 29 degrees Celsius will be room temperature. So that's very high actually for them. So they will start getting converted into a gas immediately. Okay. I believe this much is clear for everyone. Non-polar molecular solid. Okay, no, any problem? Just let me know. If you have any issues, let me know. I will repeat that. Only this part I have finished now. Clear? Any doubt you have, you can ask me. No problem, no? Okay, then I'll stop here for today. I will continue tomorrow from here itself. Okay, this part I'll be continuing tomorrow. And once it is done, then I will be sending you that chart. You can write down that. Okay.